Hi, I'm Riley. And this is the moment I realized I was never just the disappointment in my family. I was their insurance policy. Until I stopped cashing in. The driveway looked exactly the same as it did 3 years ago. Cracked pavement, the faded white fence Dad never fixed, and the dented mailbox I once backed into when I was 17. Some things, it seemed, never changed. I pulled up alone. Or at least, that's what they thought. Inside, the house buzzed with voices. Warm greetings, cutlery clinking, a bottle of wine uncorked with too much ceremony. I knocked out of courtesy, even though no one answered. I let myself in. Mom saw me first. Her eyes skimmed over my coat, my shoes, my expression, like she was auditing my existence. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You made it." Not "hi, sweetie." Not "we missed you." Just, "You made it." Like I'd crashed a party by mistake. "I did," I said. "You asked me to." She gave a tight smile and turned to walk toward the kitchen. I followed. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want to be standing in the foyer like a suitcase nobody claimed. The dining room was full of voices that got louder when I walked in, not quieter. Emily, my sister, waved at me from the head of the table like I was a distant cousin, then whispered something to her husband that made him chuckle behind his wineglass. Mom came back holding a salad bowl, saw me scanning the room, and nodded toward the hallway. "You can set up in the garage," she said, too casually. I paused. "The garage?" She looked up like I'd asked something strange. "Yeah, we had to add chairs for everyone else. You know how it gets. Holiday crowds. You can eat in the garage. We made it nice." "Made it nice," I repeated, flat. Dad chimed in from the table, without turning his head. "You'll have the folding table. We brought out the big heater and everything." Emily laughed. "Hey, at least you're not with the coats this year." Someone snorted. I didn't see who. I swallowed it down. The burn, the bite. I'd done this before. Sat through dinners where I was the afterthought. Watched as my name disappeared from invitations, as family photos cropped me at the elbow, as everyone silently agreed that I was the one who didn't quite fit. I stepped back into the hall, dropped my coat on the rickety bench, and took a breath. I could feel it rising. The part of me that used to beg for approval, that used to wait for one of them, just one, to say, "We were wrong about you." But not tonight. Mom reappeared at the threshold with a forced cheer. "He'll have to park on the street," she said. "We filled the driveway." I blinked at her. "Who?" She froze. "I... What?" "My husband," I said, calm, clear. "He's just parking the car." Silence. Like someone turned off the sound in the room. The clink of a fork dropped somewhere. Emily stared at me like I'd said I was bringing a celebrity to dinner. "You got married?" she asked, blinking fast. I smiled. "6 months ago?" Dad stood now. "You didn't tell us." "No," I said, walking toward the kitchen. "You didn't ask." I left them standing in the dining room like mannequins in a display that suddenly didn't match the season. Then the front door opened. He walked in like he'd been born into hardwood floors and generational arrogance. 6'3" in a dark wool coat, the kind you only notice because it looks so simple it had to be expensive. My husband, Alex. He smiled warmly at my parents, extended a hand to my father. "Alex Langston," he said. "Nice to finally meet you." Dad took his hand slowly. His face changed mid-shake, from courtesy to recognition, then to something I couldn't name. Not surprise, not fear, something closer to panic. He knew the name. Emily's wineglass slipped slightly in her fingers. "Wait, Langston, like Langston Systems?" Alex gave a modest nod. "That's me." I watched their faces fall like bricks off a faulty ledge. Mom blinked so fast I thought she might pass out. Emily's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "You married him?" she gasped. I tilted my head. "Is that a problem?" Dad sat back down without speaking, just stared at the fork on his plate. Mom forced a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "Well, isn't this a surprise?" Alex squeezed my hand under the table. No one saw it, but they saw me sit down at the main table, next to him. Emily said nothing, but her eyes said everything. We weren't here to cause a scene, but a scene had formed itself, and I was done apologizing for taking up space. Sometimes it's not the spotlight you need, just a seat at the table you built yourself. The first time I realized I wasn't wanted, I was 9. It was a Tuesday. I'd stayed up the night before cutting glitter paper for a Mother's Day card, while Emily watched TV in her fuzzy unicorn socks and called me "try hard" 3 times. The next morning, I woke up early, placed the card on Mom's nightstand with a single flower from our front yard, and crept back to my room. When I passed the hallway an hour later, it was gone. Thrown away. The trash can by the kitchen sink was full of eggshells, a paper towel, and a glitter card, torn clean down the middle. I stood there staring at it, my socks wet from spilled coffee grounds. Emily got her a bouquet, bought by Dad. She didn't even sign the card herself. "Mom liked the lilies," she said, shrugging. "Yours was kinda messy." That was the first time I told myself, maybe next year. But the second time, that's when I stopped hoping altogether. They always said Emily was the golden one, but they never said it with pride. Only implication, like it was obvious. Like everyone else saw it, so why wouldn't I? She had the grades, sure. But I had something else. Quiet wins. I placed in a statewide design contest in 8th grade. I taught myself Photoshop when I was 12. I sold my first logo to a local coffee shop at 15 for $50 and a lifetime supply of muffins, which for me felt like a miracle. When I showed Dad the mock-ups I'd done, he blinked once. "Cute," he said, folding the paper. "But that's not a real skill. That's hobby stuff." He set the pages down without looking at the rest. A week later, Emily showed him a flyer she made in PowerPoint for her school's bake sale. He called her a natural leader. By the time I graduated high school, I knew my worth in their eyes. Not 0. Worse. Convenient. Dad sat me down with a sheet of paper. Not a college acceptance. Not a check. Not a congratulatory card. A spreadsheet. "Our budget's tight," he said. "We can't help with tuition. But you're paying for Emily's pharmacy school." "She's studying medicine," he cut me off. "That's a real degree. Yours is..." "What? Art on computers? UX design. It's online. Which means you can figure it out yourself. You're independent, Riley. You'll be fine." That was the word they always used when they wanted to disappear. Independent. Not strong. Not brave. Just conveniently self-sufficient. I took 3 part-time jobs that year. I walked to class through snow and skipped dinners to make deadlines. No one called. No one offered to help. Emily sent me 1 text in 8 months. "Mom said your hair looked stringy in that photo. You okay?" That was it. Still, I never snapped. Not when Dad asked to borrow my car and returned it with a cracked windshield. Not when Mom forgot to invite me to Emily's engagement dinner. Not when I mailed them a framed photo of my graduation and it stayed in the envelope, unopened, on their living room bookshelf for over a year. But the moment that broke something in me came later. It was the summer after college. I'd just landed my first contract with a major tech brand. Small gig, but a foot in the door. I posted about it, proud, subtle, just a photo of my desk and a tiny caption. "Start where you are." That night, I got a call from a potential client I'd pitched the week before. He sounded tense. "Hey, I know we had a great chat, but something weird came up. Someone reached out from your references, said you had a habit of overstating your experience, that you were, quote, a gifted amateur at best." I froze. What? "I just wanted to let you know, not trying to accuse you. But if you're being honest about your portfolio, you might want to check who's speaking for you." I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I knew. The email had come from an account with Dad's initials. The IP traced back to their city. And the phrasing? I'd heard it before. Gifted amateur. That was what Dad called me when I won a citywide hackathon 2 years prior. I never confronted him. I didn't need to. Because sometimes silence isn't absence, it's confession. I moved across the country 2 months later, started over. I took small gigs, built my portfolio under a new name, stopped posting about my work. I didn't even tell them when I met Alex. Not because I wanted to hide, because I finally had something they didn't get to poison. "You're too sensitive," Mom used to say. Whenever I called out a snide remark, or flinched at a joke with a blade under the laugh, she'd wave it away. "You always twist things. You make everything about you." But maybe I did, because I was the only one who never got to be about anything. When Emily threw tantrums, they called it passion. When I spoke up, it was disrespect. When she cried, she got a hug. When I cried, I got a closed door and an eye roll. That's the kind of difference that doesn't show up in photo albums, but it stains your memories all the same. And yet, I still sent birthday cards, still called on Mother's Day, still offered help when they hinted at money trouble, because that's the thing about conditional love. You keep offering more, hoping one day the conditions will change. They didn't. The final straw came in the form of a forwarded email. A mutual connection, someone who knew my name, but not my history, sent me a screenshot. It was a message from my mother. Subject line: "Langston girl?" She was responding to a community board post from someone asking for UX help. "She's our daughter," the message read. "But full disclosure, she's a bit unstable, has trouble with deadlines, creative, but dramatic. I'd look elsewhere." I stared at it, then closed the laptop. That was the last time I spoke to them in over a year. Until last night, until the garage seat, until the table, until Alex, and now. Now they were looking at me like they'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't haunting them. I was the storm they built, brick by brick, lie by lie, and forgot to prepare for. Ever realize the people who labeled you too much were just scared of what you'd become if you ever stopped shrinking? The silence didn't last long. The moment Alex said his name, it hovered in the air like a spark looking for gasoline. Emily's eyes widened, fingers still clutched around her wineglass. "Wait, Langston? As in Langston Systems?" Alex gave a small, polite nod. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The recognition was already burning its way across their faces. Mom looked from me to him and back again, a strained smile spreading across her lips like it was glued on crooked. Wow, that's quite the coincidence. You two know each other long?" Alex answered calmly. "About 3 years. We met through work." Dad shifted in his chair. "Work?" "I was consulting with a digital wellness platform at the time. Riley designed the onboarding experience." Emily let out a soft laugh that didn't sound real. "You're telling me Riley, our Riley, was working with you?" "She was the only one who understood the psychology behind the flow," Alex said, with the kind of certainty that doesn't ask for agreement. Emily blinked, then muttered under her breath, "This is a joke." And there it was. The slip. The disbelief. Not curiosity. Not concern. Contempt. "She's not lying," Alex added, without looking at her. "If that's what you're thinking." "I didn't say she was," Emily snapped. "You didn't have to," I said quietly, my tone flat, but the words landed sharp. It happened fast after that. The mood in the room shifted from awkward curiosity to controlled panic. Mom rose from her seat, gesturing for Dad to help her bring out dessert. A meaningless excuse to escape. I watched them disappear into the kitchen. Emily stayed seated, eyes narrowing. "How come we didn't know?" she asked. "Why didn't you tell anyone you got married?" I tilted my head. "When exactly would that have been, Emily? During one of your Instagram giveaways? Maybe at Dad's birthday party I wasn't invited to?" She scoffed. "God, you're so dramatic." Alex stepped in gently. "Maybe let's not—" "No," I interrupted. "Let her speak." Emily leaned back, like she was settling in. "So what is this then? A power move? You show up here with your secret billionaire husband to— what? Rub it in our faces? Say—" "If I wanted to rub anything in," I said. You wouldn't be sitting here with a glass of Trader Joe's cab pretending it's vintage Bordeaux. She went red. Alex reached for my hand under the table again. This time, I didn't squeeze back. I was focused. The sound of whispering filtered in from the kitchen. Hushed voices, clanking dishes. I could almost hear the gears turning. The Googling had already begun. When they came back, Mom was pale. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You should have told us earlier," she said, voice light and sharp. "We would have done something nice for you both." "Like a chair at the main table?" I said, not unkindly. Just honestly. Dad's jaw ticked. "We were trying to make room for the guests we knew were coming," he muttered. Emily chimed in again. "You don't get to hold that against them. You hid your entire relationship. What did you expect?" "Respect," I said. One word. Simple. Too much for them. The conversation derailed from there. Not into shouting. That wasn't their style. It was worse. It was subtle. Surgical. Mom started asking questions with edges. What do his parents do? Emily leaned into passive-aggressive mode. Does he know how complicated you can be? Dad made a joke about prenups that wasn't a joke at all. I watched them unravel slowly, the way people do when their control slips from their hands and lands squarely in yours. Then came the moment I knew was coming. Dad stood. "Can I talk to you for a second?" he said to Alex. Alex looked at me. I gave a short nod. They stepped outside to the porch. Mom followed a minute later. Emily remained inside, staring at me. "So, what's the plan?" she asked. I furrowed my brow. "Plan? You show up, blow everyone's mind, and what? You think he's gonna fix what happened?" My lips curled. "No, he doesn't have to fix it. He just needs to witness it." She blinked. "Witness what?" "What it looks like when a family finds out the person they buried didn't die. She built an empire while they laughed at her funeral." Emily's face twitched. "You always think you're the underdog." "No," I said, standing. "I was the test. You all failed." Outside, the air was colder. I stepped out just in time to hear Dad saying, "And I'm just asking if there's any mentorship opportunity for Emily's husband or—" Alex's reply was firm, gentle, final. "I'm not hiring." Dad turned around, startled to see me standing there. "You're eavesdropping now?" he spat. I walked down the steps slowly. "No, you're just bad at subtlety." Mom jumped in. "Riley, you want something from him, already." Dad didn't deny it. I stepped closer. "You don't get to ask for help from the man whose name you just doubted. Not when you wouldn't even give me a room at the table." Silence again. Then Alex softly, "Should we go?" I nodded. "Yeah, let's go." We walked to the car. No one followed. Halfway down the driveway, Mom called after me. Her voice didn't sound angry. It sounded scared. "Riley, wait, please, let's talk." I turned back, slowly. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not older, just smaller. "You're still our daughter," she said. "That's true," I said. "But I'm not your secret anymore." And then I got in the car. We drove away. Sometimes it's not revenge you're after, just recognition, and the freedom that comes when you no longer need it. We didn't speak on the ride home. Not because there was tension. The opposite, actually. There was peace. For the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself, or apologize for not being who they wanted, or defend the fact that I was never meant to fit into a system that only had space for one daughter to shine. And I wasn't even angry anymore. I was tired. And sometimes tired is more dangerous than rage, because tired stops trying. The next day, I expected silence. I should have known better. At 10:42 a.m., I got a text from Emily. "Emily, so this is what you do now? Show up rich and smug and pretend you're better than everyone?" I didn't respond. 3 minutes later, she sent another. "Emily, you humiliated Mom. She cried all night." Right. Cried. Was it before or after she tried to get Alex to fund my brother-in-law's startup? I turned my phone face down on the kitchen counter and poured my coffee. I wasn't going to spiral. Not for them. Alex leaned on the doorway, watching me. "They're not done," he said quietly. "No," I sighed. "They never are." That afternoon, the real punch landed. A message request popped up on LinkedIn from a former client. Friendly tone, but curious. "Hey Riley, just got a weird DM from someone claiming you weren't actually the lead on the Lexa Health project. Thought I'd check in directly. It didn't sound like you, honestly." I felt my pulse change. I opened the screenshot. It was anonymous. But the phrasing? She was involved, but not critical. Great eye for color. A little erratic under pressure, though. I didn't need proof. I'd seen that handwriting before, just now typed. Emily? Because who else knew the exact project name? Who else would still be trying to rewrite the past? I didn't react right away. I walked around the apartment once. Then again. I breathed in slow and sat down in the quiet. And then I did what I should have done years ago. I opened my proof folder. Every designer I know has one. A folder you keep not for clients, but for survival. Email trails, time-stamped concepts, Slack messages with approvals. I had the mock-ups, the sign-offs, even the CEO's "you saved our launch" email. I forwarded them all to the client. Politely, professionally, no commentary. Then I opened a new message. To Emily subject. You're not subtle. Also, not smart. Body. You've always mistaken silence for weakness, but I've been documenting since the day you threw out my sketchbook and said I was wasting time. Try me again, and I'll make sure the next client you smear gets a copy of the cease and desist. Hug mom for me. I hit send, then closed the laptop. And for the first time since that dinner, I laughed. Because Emily wasn't scared I was showing off. She was scared I didn't need her audience anymore. 3 days later, I got a call from my cousin, Natalie. We hadn't talked much in years. She'd always been in Emily's orbit, but never fully drank the Kool-Aid. "I just wanted to say," she started, "that what you did at dinner, I wish I'd had the guts to do that." I didn't know what to say. She went on, "You know Emily's been telling people you married Alex in secret because he's got a prenup and you're trying to get around it, right?" I blinked. "What?" She said you don't work, that you're trying to get pregnant to secure the bag. Her words. I almost dropped my mug. Natalie exhaled. "I know it's gross. I wanted to let you know." I closed my eyes. The room felt suddenly too small. Because this wasn't just about pettiness anymore. This was defamation. That night, I told Alex everything. He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't get angry on my behalf. He just asked one question. Do you want to end it or expose it? And I knew my answer. What would you do when someone keeps rewriting your story louder than you ever got to live it? The email came at 8:11 a.m. Subject line, internal use only. I almost didn't open it. I was halfway through breakfast, skimming headlines, trying to pretend the past wasn't leaking into my present, but something about that subject line stopped me. It was from an old colleague, one I hadn't spoken to in over a year. "Riley, forwarding this in case you haven't seen it. Thought you should know. Also, sorry." Attached was a PDF, a recommendation letter, supposedly written by a mentor of mine, except it wasn't signed. And the email it came from? I recognized it. An alias Emily used in college, one she thought no one remembered. Riley is incredibly creative, though often struggles with collaboration and time management. She's independent to a fault and doesn't always take feedback well. That said, she's passionate and might thrive in a less team-oriented role. It wasn't the words that hurt. It was the precision, the familiarity. She knew exactly how to make me look almost hireable, just flawed enough to get passed over. This wasn't just petty, this was sabotage. Again, I didn't call her, I didn't text. I packed a bag and booked a car. Mom answered the door wearing a beige sweater like armor. Her smile was already defensive. Oh, Riley, you should have called. I figured I'd return the favor, I said. Since you never call. She hesitated. Well, come in. The house smelled the same. Lemon cleaner and nostalgia. Emily was on the couch with her laptop. She looked up and immediately froze. Wow, she said flatly. Surprise visit. We're honored. I got your letter, I said. What letter? The fake recommendation, sent to one of my clients, posing as a mentor. She blinked too fast. I don't know what you're talking about. You never do, I said. But you always leave fingerprints. Mom stepped between us. Girls, please. No, I snapped. This isn't about you deflecting, or Emily gaslighting, or us pretending this is normal. Emily stood now. You're making something out of nothing. I pulled my phone out of my coat pocket, opened the email, and tossed it onto the table. Then you won't mind if I report it to your employer. Pretty sure falsifying documents under an alias isn't in their code of ethics. She went pale. You wouldn't, she said, voice thin. Wouldn't I? I smiled. Why don't we ask the board at Langston Systems? You know, the company your husband applied to last month? She stepped back like I'd slapped her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't even move. Because for the first time, they were the ones rattled. But here's where it got interesting. Dad entered the room, quiet, watching, then said, She was just scared you'd outgrow us. Everyone froze. Mom turned. Don't. But he kept going. You were the one with real ideas. Real fight. She knew it. I knew it. Hell, even your teachers used to say you'd go far if someone just backed off. I stared at him. Then why didn't you? He looked tired. Because you made us feel small. It landed like a brick. Not because it shocked me, but because it finally made sense. They didn't dismiss me because I was weak. They dismissed me because I was strong. Because I saw through them too early, too clearly. And they hated me for it. Viewer reflection. Ever realize someone didn't forget you? They erased you because they knew you remembered too much? I didn't report Emily. Not yet. I walked out without saying goodbye. No threats, no dramatics. But I left the phone on the table, still open, still showing the email. Let her sit with it. Let her realize I never needed revenge. Just clarity. I wasn't going to go back. That was the promise I made to myself after the last time. When I walked out of that house and left the email open on their kitchen table like a mirror they couldn't avoid. But promises get complicated when hospitals get involved. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the call came. Natalie again. Her voice was tight. Your dad collapsed. I said nothing. Just listened to her breathing. They think it's cardiac. Not a heart attack, but serious. Your mom's a mess. Of course she is. And Emily? I asked. She's flying back tonight. I don't think she can handle it alone. I closed my laptop and stared out the window. The city was humming, indifferent. My mug was still half full. The tea had gone cold. I don't know what you want me to do with that, I finally said. There was silence. Then, softly, I don't think this is about what you owe. I think it's about what they never gave. But maybe this time you get to decide the terms. I sat on it for 5 hours. Packed nothing, said nothing to Alex. But just after sunset, I pulled out the manila envelope I hadn't touched in 2 years, the one with all the copies, statements, and transfers they never knew I had. And I made a call, not to the hospital, not to my mom, to my financial advisor. Unfreeze the Carter Fund, I said. They'll need it now. I arrived the next morning before visiting hours. The nurse at the front desk asked if I was family. I hesitated. Sort of. The ICU smelled like antiseptic and grief. Soft shoes squeaked across polished floors. I found his room by instinct. Walked slowly. Listened to the beeping monitor before I even saw his face. He looked smaller. Not fragile, but reduced. Mom was asleep in the chair beside him. Blanket half pulled over her lap, face drawn. I didn't speak. I just stood there, let the silence say everything I couldn't. When she stirred, she didn't look surprised to see me. She just said, "I didn't know if you'd come." I didn't either. She sat up, rubbed her eyes. "He's stable now. They said he might need surgery later. We don't know what insurance will cover." There it was. That old ghost. The hint. I waited. She didn't finish the sentence. Just looked at me. "You're not asking," I said. "You're implying." Her eyes welled up. "He's your father." He's the man who told a potential employer I was unreliable. Let's not rewrite roles now. "I'm not defending what happened," she said, "but people make mistakes when they're scared." I crossed my arms. "You weren't scared. You were calculating. He was strategic, and Emily was cruel. That wasn't fear. That was control." She looked down. "But here's what you don't know," I added. "Last year, when the IRS almost froze your account over unpaid property taxes," her head snapped up. "That anonymous donation? The one you assumed came from some church fund?" She blinked. "What?" "That was me." I pulled a folded document from my bag and placed it on the table. "Langston Foundation. I redirected the fund through a community grant. Clean, legal, quiet. Because even after everything, I didn't want you to lose the house." Her hands trembled as she picked it up. "I didn't tell you because I knew what you'd do with it. You'd spin it into proof that I still needed you. Or worse, that you were right about me all along." She was crying now, quietly. "I don't want an apology," I said. "I just want acknowledgement. I was never the lost one. I was the backup plan." Later, when Emily arrived, her reaction was as predictable as her wardrobe. "You're here?" she said, stopping in the hallway. I didn't look up from the chart. "He's still unconscious." She glanced toward the room, then back at me. "You think this changes anything?" "No," I said calmly, "but it reveals everything." She crossed her arms. "You think money fixes trauma?" "I think silence feeds it, and I'm done starving." Emily opened her mouth, closed it again. Then she saw the document on the chair, the one our mother had folded and unfolded, over and over, like a secret prayer. She picked it up, read it, and for the first time in years, she said nothing. "Ever help someone who'd never help you? Not out of pity, but to prove you were never the problem?" The invitation came in a cream envelope, gold foil, thick stock, embossed with cursive that tried to look effortless. "Emily Carter and Dr. Jeremy Langford cordially invite you." I didn't read the rest. I left it on the kitchen counter, untouched, for 2 days. Then I burned it. Not out of anger, just finality. Because forgiveness isn't always reconciliation. Sometimes, it's just releasing the need to ever be understood. A week later, I walked through the door of my new studio. It smelled like cedar and fresh paint. My name, just mine, printed on the glass. Alex stood beside me, silent, proud. No family photos on the shelves, no childhood trophies, just blueprints, mood boards. A single framed note that said, "You are not too much." They were simply too small. I didn't go to the wedding. I didn't send a gift, or a text, or a story for them to twist. And they didn't come looking. Because they knew. This wasn't silence. It was sovereignty. The last time I saw my childhood home, it was in the rearview mirror. No music, no tears, just sun bleeding through the windshield. And peace. Not because they changed, but because I did. Walking away doesn't mean you lost. It means you stopped asking for permission to exist. Sometimes it's not the apology you need. It's the realization that you never needed their approval to begin with. I spent years chasing closeness that was always out of reach, thinking if I worked harder, stayed quieter, or proved my worth, maybe I'd earn love. But what I learned is this: love without respect is just control in costume. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, I hope this story reminds you that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. What about you? Have you ever chosen peace over permission? I'd love to hear where you're watching from, or what part of this story resonated with you most. And hey, if you didn't vibe with this one, tell me why. Let's talk. If this video touched something in you, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. We're just getting started.